This is Let Us In podcast, and this is our episode talking about movies that freaked us out. And it's not just touching on taboos, it's personal. I'm Emma of The Impact.
I'm Justine, aka JustineUFF.
And I'm Crystal from Creepin' It's Spooky.
I interpreted this idea two ways. One, we could talk about movies that freaked us out in a real effed up way because it was just shocking and just, oh my God. And then I also thought of it as a movie that really stuck with me and scared me. So Scared versus Scarred. One of the first movies to actually scare me for a while. It had been a while since I had been terrified from a movie, was Sinister. That movie came out and I was so caught off guard by how scary it was. I mean, Bagul was freaky. The found footage images were really scary. I was just really impacted by that movie. It stuck with me for a while and it still scares me. I still tense up when I watch it.
For me, and that I had the same experience, and folks that watch a lot of horror, there's certain things that you get used to seeing. So there are certain taboos in film that are going to be disturbing for most people, and that's why they're taboos. But when it comes to actually freaking you out, kind of making you feel that childhood fear a little bit again, that's it's irrational, but you can't help being scared, it becomes more personal. And I think a lot of people feel that way about Sinister. But with Sinister, for me, the thing that was scary, because Bagul wasn't scary to me, his look, it was the sound with the found for the It's one of those examples that happens in especially horror films. It happens in it's important in all genres, but a lot of importance with horror films, whether you're talking about jump scares, tension, or it's a scene that's supposed to feel like a regular scene that could be in any movie. Sound is so important. So for Sinister, that was the creepiest part. When the things are more explained later on about, Bagul and the children thing, it becomes less scary. It's the beginning of the movie when it's kind of become invested because he's trying to figure it out. We also are trying to figure it out.
The parts that Bagul was scary for me were the parts I didn't expect him. They handled jump scares really well in a very fresh way. The scariest parts for me was when he was looking at a photo and he could see Bagul in the bushes and he held it up into the window to look at it to see the comparison. And when he pulled it away, Bagul was there in his bushes. That scared me so much.
It haunts me. If I hear that, I feel uncomfortable. It makes my skin crawl. It's not stupid for me, but in the movie,
There's certain things about movies that just don't freak me out. I had an issue with Sinister because the spooky kid thing just does nothing for me. Bagul was a bit creepy. There were aspects of the movie that were decent, but the movie did not stick with me. It did not freak me out. Yeah, I don't know. It didn't do much for me, but I agree with you that sound is very important in movies, but maybe I just was in a bad mood. And honestly, I've only ever watched it once and I made my decision then, and I should probably rewatch it and give it another chance.
The found footage scene really also hits that sound aspect that you're talking about, Emma, because that lawnmower, when it reveals what is happening, it's loud. It's
I'll give the lawnmower scene credit. That one did get me. I did jump on that one.
I think that got everybody, yeah.
This creepiest killing, because it connects to my more kinder type of trauma, when I was a kid, and something that freaked me out is the one where they're in the lawn chair and they're dragged into the pool.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not a great swimmer, but I can swim enough.
And he's in the pool and he's just
he's just standing in the pool all chill, but it scares the shit out of me.
It's he acknowledges the viewer. It's very intense.
And I have freakouts early on in life about water. I was raised by film people. I was shown Jaws at a young age, thinking that nowadays it doesn't have the same effect as it did back then. It's not scary, but it scared me a lot. It's one of my favorite movies now, but I still have an irrational fear of sharks. It's healthy to be afraid of of sharks, but my rationalization of where sharks are is not realistic, because even though I'm in a pool, I am like still thinking about sharks, okay? Best, in my opinion, that's not my opinion, it's just true. Kid shows that was meant to be scary. Are You Afraid of the Dark on Nick at Night? There was an episode where a ghost particularly haunted the pool. Like the pool was closed off because kids died there. Even though as an adult I look at that ghost and the effects and the way they made it look, and it does not look good. It doesn't even look good for a kid's show. But when I was a kid,
how our minds worked when we were younger to like make some of these horrible graphics feel a lot realer.
The scariest things are, like, as an adult, we're more, as a person, you're more susceptible to being scared when you're alone. It follows, a lot of people say it lost me, because in the beginning it's very scary because she's alone, and then the other part of the rest of the movie, she has a group of friends, and whenever, like, even if I'm with a toddler, for some reason I'm less scared because there's just another human being there, even though they can do nothing about danger. Nothing.
Yeah.
But a lot of other movies, like a recent movie, it didn't freak me out, but it reminded me of good techniques of freakouts, where you think you see something in your peripheral vision, then you realize it's just a jacket that's hung on a chair or something. Is The Night House, where they had the entity like part of the architecture. I was disappointed in the ending, but that part of the movie I really liked.
Yeah, that was very freaky. And I have night terrors, and I've seen The Hat Man, and it gave me that vibe, and it reminded me of that.
What's the Hat Man? Tell me about the Hat Man.
The Hat Man is it's almost like a shared delusion that people have that is unexplained. It's like a mass hysteria thing. Yeah. People who have night terrors or who have waking like sleep paralysis have claimed to have been visited by the Hat Man or a trio of shadow people.
He doesn't like schools, does he?
No, not that I know of. But I've had experiences where I've seen the Hat Man, and I've had sleep paralysis. And there's also like this
like you can't move,
natural,
like you can't move,
like you can't move, but you can see and everything and feel. Like you just can't.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah, it's very scary when it happens, and I blame it on my lucid dreaming. I have a lot of lucid dreams. Like one of the things that's really interesting about the Hat Man and its connection to sleep paralysis is a natural phenomenon that occurs because of the way our eyes are shaped. We have rods and cones in our eyes, and your rods, and I'm going to get this mixed up probably. Your cones, I believe, show color and can perceive color, and your rods can perceive darkness and lightness. So bright and dark, shadow and light. We have more rods and cones concentrated at the very back of our eyes. Out of the corner of our eye, we have more rods throughout the rest of our eye, but the cones are much more concentrated in the center. So when you're looking at something directly, you can perceive it a lot better. Makes sense. That's how eyes should probably work. When you're looking at something, you can see it. But what happens is the rods do better in the peripheral suddenly because the cones aren't working. You're not like sending signals of your cones. I'm probably not explaining this super well. I'm sure a scientist can probably do a better job. But the point is your rods will kick into high gear in your peripherals sometimes. So you may actually perceive things in the shadows that you didn't perceive before when you were directly looking over there because your cones were picking up other stimuli. So sometimes you get what's a trick of the eye where you see a shadow move or you sense something in the shadows because your eye has moved into a different perception of that area. So it's
that makes me feel a lot better because I just thought I was dumb and scared. Honestly.
No. And that happens to me all the time. I don't know why, but like I get the like moving in the like corner of my eye thing all the time. So any movies that are about that freak me out because I will be thinking about the movie and then it'll happen. I'll see something out of the corner of my eye.
Do you feel, even though I'm not the biggest Conjuring fan, do you feel the Crooked Man is related to the Hat Man? Does he have a hat? I don't remember.
Have a hat. I think it's a different kind of hat though.
There's different kinds of hat for the Hat Man?
No, the Hat Man is
there's like a bowler like or a top hat, like round, like that's a classic.
Typically the fedora style, like Dick Tracy style hat.
That's
really
actually kind of hipster funny. Like,
He
don't
looks
get
like
me wrong, if I
literally.
saw that in my peripheral vision, I might shit myself. But like,
Literally, people are haunted by some neo-noir Dick Tracy character. That's what it is.
and
It
it's
sounds
not
way less
sexy.
scary when you
It's not
It is
sexy.
not sexy. It is scary
Oh,
because
disappointing.
you're paralyzed, and it looks like there's someone standing over your bed watching you,
Ugh.
and they're wearing like a hat and trench coat, like silhouette. It's freaky. The last experience I had with that was after I watched the documentary The Nightmare, which also freaked me out and triggered a night terror. So
Oh.
That's
perfect
specifically
choice.
about sleep paralysis, right?
It's specifically a documentary about sleep paralysis and this hysteria of the Hat Man. I watched it and then I had a night terror that night and I saw the Hat Man. He was only like 3 feet tall and there were 3 of them and they were at the end of my bed. And
Are
at
you
the
sure it wasn't
time
Chucky?
I'm positive, like I was living in a studio apartment. I was kind of bachelorette style. Like I had my bed on the floor. I had my dog still, Athena. I remember waking up and seeing these 3 figures at the end of my bed, not being able to move, going, oh, like making a stupid noise, trying to get my dog's attention, who's sleeping right next to me in her dog bed. And I couldn't do anything. And I closed my eyes really tight and I opened them and I could like move again suddenly. And they were gone.
That's
I
terrifying.
felt so silly for
That's
being afraid of
terrifying. If you can't move,
3-foot figures.
especially if you're any person that's experienced trauma, which is everyone to a different degree, and you have no control of your body.
Yeah.
But it
That's
reminds
one of my
me.
greatest fears.
I think that is a very reasonable fear, as
I
opposed
hated
to
it when I
like
gave
sharks and
birth too.
pools.
Having an epidural was scary. I didn't like the feeling at all.
Yeah.
There's a movie called The Canal, which has been on Shudder for a long time, which your nightmares, non-shark nightmares, reminded me of. It's a movie that has some story problems. It's kind of like about perpetual hauntings, a husband that kills his wife, something that doesn't necessarily connect to my personal life because I've never had a husband that's killed me, but there are
No
moments,
way.
like no way, right? There are certain moments it plays upon the peripheral vision and it also plays upon the power of a figure. There's a particular ghost figure in that movie. It's very artfully shown, but in a way that is very unsettling. It's a way that's unsettling, that is unnatural to the eye, kind of powerful. And after I watched this movie, it wouldn't have said like this is one of the scariest movies I've ever seen. And I'm not a person that's prone to nightmares, as far as I know. I usually don't remember my dreams. But and usually if I have a dream that's related to a movie or something or some kind of content that I've soaked in, it usually doesn't happen like immediate. It's never happened immediately, except this one time after I watched The Canal and I had a dream and it was like the cinematography that was similar. My dream cinematography was similar to that of my dream, where this ghost that isn't even in the movie that much, that he just like, it's like, imagine this is like the foot of your bed, right? It's just like,
Yeah.
which looks kind of stupid.
I don't
but
like that.
in a certain light, in a certain mood, with certain good sounds, it looks, and when you don't expect, and then he just slowly rose, and then he choked me to death, like, and I woke up. It was so upsetting, and that is unusual for me. Usually the worst dream I have is I have somewhere to be and I just can't get there. Like, like, if people ask what's a movie that will freak me out, that wouldn't be one I'd say, because a lot of people could watch that movie and not feel as freaked out as I did, and I don't even consciously know exactly why it affected me so much in a way that it was subconscious.
Have you
I'll
seen
have to
that
watch
YouTube
that.
short, the box, where they're gifted a box and
Yes!
he like gets
Yes,
the
and
letter
the eyes!
and they look back and the dude's like,
I haven't seen that.
See it.
it's so scary.
It's so
Oh my
good.
god. When
So
you were
good.
explaining that dream and you were like, you're just like this with the bed, I'm like, nope. I've seen that short and
I think you'll like it, Crystal. I can't remember what it's called. I can't remember. It's a certain channel. I've
like
watched
Don't
a lot
Look
of.
Away or something like that. I don't remember.
It might be
either.
that. There's a certain channel on YouTube. Found that channel through a TikTok. It was a different short though, where there's a little girl, and this did freak me out. A little girl's just hanging out in her room. She hears her mother just like, "Hey, come on, it's time for dinner," or whatever. And she just goes out in the hallway, and there's another door next to her bedroom door. Her mother grabs her and is like, "I heard it it too, meaning that the
Yeah, I've seen that
altar,
one.
that's the one that it was on TikTok, and I'm like, and it freaked me out enough. It's like, I need more of this. I need more. They're all different creators that create this short. We'll
I
link
love
it.
the Backrooms ones too.
I've seen
Or
those.
the ones,
I've seen
or the
those.
one, yeah, the ones where people are like just doing like normal stuff and they like
Yeah.
trip and fall, and all of a sudden they're in the back rooms. Like,
Yeah.
they're so scary.
Those are scary.
Can you
Those are pretty creepy.
imagine? Like if you just walked into a room, but all of a sudden you were not in your house.
You
like,
feel that unnatural when, like, I think that's that's just a defense mechanism pretty much any animal has, that it's just like, this is unnatural. I'm
yeah,
scared.
YouTube shorts freaked me out. One of them that has
Yeah.
stayed with me to this day is Lights Out, the original short that the film was based
one.
off of.
Yes.
The original
Yes.
short, every time I turn off my bedside lamp, I think of that short and I get scared. Every single time without fail, if I'm turning off a light, I'm thinking of that short.
Yeah.
Like I freak myself out all the time
That's
because
a
of that
good
short.
short.
Like,
Yeah,
it is
that's a
so
good one.
effective.
Yeah.
Oh,
There's
it's so
actually
good.
a video essay that someone did comparing Lights Out, the short, to the movie, and how they felt the short was more effectively scary, and they showed
Way
the
more
same
effective.
scene when the light is turned out, and you don't see
Mhm.
anything, and it's turned on, you see something, and that how it was shot differently, and the short, which I agree with the person that made the video essay, that the short was scarier.
I agree.
And
It
then they
was.
did
It's
the-
almost like the film was too clear, almost like it was too obvious that there was somebody there.
Yeah.
Where the short, it felt like grainier almost and much more shadowy. Like maybe there isn't something there.
Yeah.
And like, so you could understand her questioning it, but then like she like really gets into a panic because it gets closer. It becomes way more clear that that is something.
Yeah.
That's way more effective than how they did it in the film, where it was very obvious that there's somebody there. Like,
Yeah.
It leads back into Sinister, which leads back into the American version of The Ring. I gotta tell you, I was a teenager. I felt like I shouldn't be that scared. I used to go visit
not
a
alone.
family member, and they didn't have like a spare room, so I'd sleep on the couch right in front of the TV. Ah, the TV! Like, because I felt like I had this subconscious thing
you
about
like just scared the crap out of me. I don't know if you saw my soul leave my body, but I literally just was like,
Oh my god.
because I had this, because and this was one of those examples of a conscious thought, even though it's not a rational thought, and I knew it wasn't rational. Like, Samara's gonna come out of the TV and kill me. I didn't talk like that as a teenager, but I was dumb, so let's just say I did. Even though I was too cool to tell anybody that I was scared of the Ring, but I was scared. And then the Ringu, which I didn't see till many years later, is actually more effectively scary as an adult, but the Ring just hit me in a certain way. And the way it ties back to Sinister, the director had a nightmare. He watched The Ring, the American version, and then immediately had a very specific nightmare that led into his inspiration for Sinister. So it's kind of interesting that both those movies freaked me out.
Yeah, I think it's so interesting how as children and even teenagers, how different things impact us, and those
Yeah.
memories stay with us long into adulthood.
So there's a handful of movies and stuff that bothered me when I was younger, but E.T., not even a horror movie. Well, it is to me though. That movie freaked me out. I'm
Me
sorry.
too.
I'm glad you said it first, because
Yeah.
as a 4-year-old, and people are like, oh yeah, I was afraid of the government taking the alien away. Like, no, I was afraid of E.T. himself.
Yeah,
There
Embarrassing.
I
was an
was so scared.
atmosphere to it. Like they set
It
him up to
was.
be scary, and it was.
I know. And I remember, like, I've had conversations with my mom about it, and she was like, E.T.'s cute. He's so cute. And I'm like, you're insane. Like, E.T. is a terrifying little creature. And I was
Totally.
scarred when he was, like, found in the river and he was all white and sick. And, like,
Oh
when
my
they brought in,
God.
like, the hazmat suits, and, like, it was that was terrifying. You cannot tell me that's not a horror movie.
Not only is it
I agree.
terrifying, it's a movie where you're scared in the moment, like we've talked
Yeah.
about with Sinister, but then it also emotionally like wrecks you for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Or longer. It could have been years, honestly.
I'm still probably ruined.
Yeah.
The same
I
thing
won't
happened to
watch
me
it.
with Gremlins, like Gremlins and any
But
of
they're
those.
so
like,
cute. Like,
They are cute, though.
I had a very demonic Furby. Okay. That
God, I
thing
You
didn't
see the
was
log
demonic.
Furbies? I'm using the log Furbies on TikTok.
No.
I'm gonna send you some log Furby shit
I
because
can't wait.
you're gonna hate it.
I should get a Furby and stick
I
it in
have
here because it
one.
scared me so much as a child. Yeah, that I had a demonic one where we literally buried it in a closet one night because it would not stop. We took batteries out of it. Like it had no power. It should not have been working. And it was still like going on and on and on and on. And we buried it under a bunch of blankets in my friend's closet. I'm sure it has like some residual power or some explanation like that. Demonic.
Do
That's
they
my
talk?
I don't
Remember
remember
that?
it talking. It was
Did
more
it make
like it made
noises?
like
Because I wanted one so
noises
bad,
and
but I
stuff.
I
didn't.
feel like it said like hungry and like
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like
yeah.
it had that.
Yeah, it
That's
was very similar to the Mogwai and Gremlins.
Yeah.
We talked about children being scared of movies. We talked about teens being scared of movies. It almost feels like whatever's influencing you at the time, and hormones tend to be like a major trigger for how we feel sometimes. And I think as women, we definitely can speak to that.
I'm not somebody that ever wanted to have kids. I like kids, but you know, when somebody asks me, "Oh, do you want to hold the baby?" I want to say no. But in movies, like in Train Spotting, and then Mother, when there is a baby in peril or dead baby, it really upsets me, and in a way that I wouldn't have thought.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted to bring up Mother, because that one really impacted me, and it impacted me in different ways. So the first time I watched it, I didn't know I was pregnant. Second time I watched it, I knew I was pregnant, and I was very pregnant. And the third attempt to watch it, I couldn't even muster the courage. I was just super impacted by the fact that I had a connection to a being growing inside of me, and that film is so much centered around that, obviously. But also the child death in it was so intense and like visual, like you see it, you see
Neck break.
baby
I
parts and
honestly just
stuff.
watched it for this podcast. I'm a fake horror fan, so I only just recently watched Mother, and I knew Jennifer Lawrence was going to experience some physical violence, but I kind of avoided any spoilers beyond that. But the baby death, even though the baby is very fake looking, the neck break is pretty upsetting. Even though I do think the most deadest of babies that upset me was Train Spotting, because the baby was just, it just felt very natural because they just didn't take care of the baby.
Well,
And the
that's
baby just
super
dead.
realistic too.
Yeah.
Yes. Even though I'm not a mother myself or plan to be,
Mm-hmm.
with Mother, before the very heavy-handed ending, there is a spot in the wall where one character, a young man, dies on the floor of this mother, her house. This spot, similar to Lady Macbeth's spot, this spot just doesn't go away. And even as somebody that hasn't actively tried to have a child, it triggered me in the sense it kind of symbolizes miscarriage to me, or a dangerous pregnancy, because sometimes that's a sign of how
Like it was
even
foreboding.
you're not only experiencing things that are confusing to you and people being selfish and how you have to relate to your own survival, the survival of another living being, and how that's scary.
Yeah, I think it was the motivations of this mob. They're like almost okay with it, and they make it out to be like what should have or could have or needed to happen, and then tried to rationalize it with her. And she's still, it happens all so fast, right? So this film is literally like an explosion of events going on where you could really feel this like chaos. She comes out looking for her baby that she literally just gave birth to. Where's my baby? Where's my baby? It makes my stomach turn just talking about it. Like I can't with that type of trauma. I actually cannot deal with any films that have child death in them anymore since I've had my kid. Since I've had my daughter, I can't. And it's partly because of the type of postpartum that I had with her, where I have high anxiety. I can't stop worrying about her and her health and whether she's okay. And it caused me a lot of mental problems after I had her, and high anxiety issues that I never had before. I never was a worrier, like someone who just worried all the time before. And when I had her, I became someone who thinks about everything in a much more anxious way. Before, I would think of things all the time. I had intrusive thoughts. Now they're very focused on like high anxiety, intrusive thought, the worst possible things that could happen. And the films that have that just really mess me up.
No, and that's completely fair. I mean, that's a personal thing that you deal with. And as somebody who doesn't have a kid, that movie didn't affect me in that way at all. But that movie gave me high anxiety because of the mob of people coming into her space. And that's the part that actually actually I latched onto on that movie. So it wasn't so much that it freaked me out, but like my anxiety was through the roof because I didn't have that connection to the baby or the kid or the pregnancy or anything, but I was like, if that many people were in my space, I would lose my mind. I can't deal with that. I'm not like a super people person. I like being by myself. I'm very much like a hermit. I stay home. And so like that part got me for that movie, but I can definitely see it from another aspect, which is actually kind of cool that that movie was able to do that.
If I ignore the heavy-handed ending, I love it. And I relate to that too, Crystal, of like it's like if I don't have my personal space, no matter what my living situation is, I need something that's my personal space. I just don't feel safe. Even if
Me
I'm
too.
around safe people, without my personal space, I feel intruded upon.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's strange because I have a few movies that like have freaked me out in a different way and I hated them. I don't hate Mother. I think it was a well-crafted film and I think it's a really important message. And I think that it was very well done to like make sure that that message felt stark to whoever was watching it. And I think that that's why it was so impactful and I did like it. I think Aronofsky is really good about telling very dire things. I loved Requiem for a Dream. I also won't watch that one again because it really F's me up. But I loved Black Swan, which I will watch over and over again. That one is just amazing. I think Mother was one that he wanted to really hit you in the gut and be done
Yeah,
with
I
you.
did. It was
Like
like
a
a super
film.
lazy about it. But that's just me. That's just me.
Speaking of the child trauma and the scariness of children, I mean, we've touched on it a couple of times with Sinister and now Mother. What about the film Terrified? That one kind of freaked you out in a different way, right?
I don't know what it was about this movie that just got under my skin. I'm very desensitized to horror movies. There's very few things that get under my skin. So, like, I don't suffer from nightmares. I don't suffer from like being just stuck with these movies for days and days. That does not happen to me. If a movie just slightly gets under my skin and makes me feel like on edge, even just ever so slightly, that movie counts for me. It freaks me out. And that's what I'm kind of basing my choices on. And Terrified did that, or Aterrados. It's an Argentinian movie. That's the Spanish title. There's so many aspects of that movie. Like it hits you really hard with this infamous shower scene. If you've seen the movie, you know. And then there's like aspects of people being under a bed. And like I know that's like a thing that a lot of people grew up with, that fear. And I did as a kid. I had a little bit of a fear of people hiding under my bed. So it kind of
still worry
plays
that someone's gonna grab my foot.
It's the ghost from the
yeah,
Canal.
exactly. Yeah. So it kind of plays with that aspect. There's a whole scene with this deceased zombie child basically at a table. And the entire time you are just on edge because it keeps focusing on this kid and you are expecting it to move. You're expecting it to do something scary. And it just keeps you so on edge and you're just not like, I don't know how they managed to pull it off. It was such an intense feeling watching that scene. And I mean, there's also very effective jump scares in the movie, which does help as well. But that scene with the kid at the table, oh my god. I don't know what that scene did to me, but it did affect me. I was literally just like holding my breath, just like, is this kid going to move? Is this kid gonna like run at them? Is he just gonna like, is he gonna move his cereal bowl? Like what? Like I didn't know. I didn't know what was going to happen. And yeah, that scene just
So as someone that also was haunted by that scene for similar reason as you, did he move?
I don't think he ever did. And that's what's so weird.
It feels like he did.
I wonder if it impacts people who are lovers of horror, who watch a lot of horror movies more because we expect certain things to happen in certain cues in films. If there's this lingering moment, you're like, oh, we're about to get a jump scare. Like you're expecting it. And so now you're like on edge waiting for it, prepping yourself mentally. And then it doesn't happen. But that anxiety and that fear of it doesn't go away. That doesn't disappear. It just stays with you. And like a movie that's successful with it will build on that and build on that and build on that.
I think that is something that really does bother me in movies. It's a very effective thing for me personally, expecting something and then having it not happen, and it just builds that tension and builds that like you're just sitting there waiting, and it just, I don't know, it causes me anxiety. That's something that definitely freaks me out, and that's a really solid point. The other movie that has that tension building is Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. This is a Korean movie. The foreign and international movies, in my opinion, do it so well for horror. Like they really affect me more. But yeah, so Gonjiam Haunted Asylum, it has so many effective scenes in it, but there's one in particular where this guy is sitting in a dark tent and you keep expecting something to come up behind him, and the light, like the power has gone out and you can just see his face illuminated by his computer screen, and you think and you seem to know that something is going to pop up behind him, and it's just this super long scene and nothing happens. Like, spoiler alert, but nothing ever pops up behind him, but like you
Yeah.
are sitting there expecting this to happen. And that's another movie that just got under my skin. There's so many moments where the tension building is so extreme and you're thinking something is going to happen, and then it just doesn't pan out the way that you think. It's so much more effective.
Do you feel it's because he's alone?
Yeah, I think the fact that he was alone and not with a group, like if there was more people with him, I don't think it would have been nearly as effective. Him being by himself, the power had gone out, you're just sitting there kind of just waiting for him to be attacked, or some spooky thing is going to show up behind him in the shadows. Like, I think that definitely was elevated because he was solo, for sure.
It's just always
Definitely.
scarier when you're alone. Like, I think that atmosphere really lends to if a movie's gonna creep you out. Like, if I had first watched Sinister during the day with
Yeah.
like a friend next to me, it wouldn't have scared me as much. But the first time I did watch that, I wasn't in the theaters. I was at home, but I was alone, and
Same, same, and it was dark outside.
and it was dark outside, and I usually and the person that's usually around wasn't around, and I was going to bed alone. And thank God I had my dogs, because it was like the fact that I was alone really added to it. But again, the sound is damaging.
One film that was like that for me was Hereditary. I watched that one by myself as well, and it has that atmosphere. It has this play with shadows in it, and it has some really like egregious acts happening. Like the first death in it, I did not see coming. I did not see her getting beheaded in that moment at all. And then on top of that, the later beheading was one of the scariest portrayals I've ever seen. With
Yeah.
you hear the sound first, the
Sound again.
like,
That didn't scare
and then
me.
they
But
show you.
Yeah.
I was in a full theater, so I think that's why I love Hereditary. I love it. But the only thing that really scared me was that first beheading, because I didn't expect it. She's young, she's a child, and you think of you feel the shock her brother has. The shock. And the funny thing is, Ari Aster, I heard a interview with him where he was talking about that movie, and he considers that a slapstick funny scene. I'm like, you're a freak. I like that about you, but you're a freak, because that was the scariest part of the movie for me.
Yeah.
Midsummer freaked me out too, but not nearly as much as Hereditary did. Hereditary had these moments that were so intense that were still also super understated compared to most horror movies. The way that most horror movies are produced, this movie did like the opposite. But he also, when you talk about using sound, he does things with his sound that he knows he's creating these sounds that are like viscerally, and like they induce a visceral experience when you hear them. They're sounds that make people uncomfortable naturally, and he uses those sounds throughout the whole film, not to mention putting people in the shadows, but not so much so that you notice it necessarily on first watch, or if your screen isn't necessarily the best clarity, you might not see them in the shadows until much later, but they're there almost the entire time in the movie in the shadows.
They are.
And it's so effective. And then on top of that, you end up having your mother on you. Like that moment where she like gets kind of possessed. Toni Collette, just performance of the century.
So
but
good.
she like, you see it happen, like where she's like, and then all of a sudden she goes,
Yeah.
and like she's possessed. The way she acts from those moments on is so scary. That's your mom, the one you're supposed to trust, love, and be there for you. And they already have this generational trauma happening. And like you see her in the corner of the room, and then crawling across the ceiling, like in this weird floaty way that nobody has ever delivered that in that way. And it was very off-putting.
Yeah, it's a
I
very
think that's
unsettling.
why zombies also have that thing that the person you once knew isn't there anymore.
Yeah. And then the scene where she's like banging her head on the ceiling to get to him, That
Yeah.
is so intense that I did not, none of these moments I expected at all from this movie when I went into
Yeah.
it. It just, I don't know, it stuck with me. I can rewatch it over and over again though. Like this is one that I feel the feelings I get from it are like an intense scare that I enjoy. I enjoy the feelings I get from this movie. Same with
See, that's so
Midsummer,
interesting.
but oof,
The movie
it freaks me out.
Hereditary never freaked me out, but it definitely had some very effective scenes for sure. I will give it
Did
credit
you
for that.
feel the heading was slapstick as well?
No, that was very effective. But I think we're coming to kind of a conclusion that unexpected moments in movies are very effective. I think that that's something that more horror directors and stuff need to focus on. And I also think, and I mean, this is kind of a bit of a tangent, but for me, seeing the scary monster or the ghost or whatever the scary entity is supposed to be, I feel like for me, that's less effective, especially if it's not scary looking at all, because there are certain movies, like I'm going to rag on The Ritual for a second. This is a movie that's liked by a lot of people, and I loved The Ritual up until the point where we saw the creature, and then the movie just killed it for me. Like I was no longer freaked out because as soon as I saw the being, I was like, that's not scary, that's dumb. Like if I kind of have a bit of like imagination to it still and I'm kind of kept guessing, for me that's more effective as well.
Definitely agree with you there. I disagree with you about Ritual though, because I really like that creature design.
A lot of people do.
However, I do
I like the
agree with
creature
you
design,
that
but it wasn't scary when you saw it. I liked it,
Yeah.
but it didn't scare me.
It wasn't scary.
I thought it was really freaky, but again, I'm a big baby when it comes to stuff. I get scared easily. I'm the opposite of you guys. I love to be scared and I won't shy away from it. But like I feel like The Ritual, I liked the creature design. I like the reveal and like the thing. It has to deliver and you take a big risk when delivering it. That's for sure. People are going to hate it or they're going to love it. And that's it. If you don't do a reveal, then you have to make sure that everything else has a good payoff.
Yeah.
Because I have problems sometimes when there isn't a good payoff.
I
And
do
that
agree
is
there, too.
typically my issue with found footage. Is like you gotta give me
Speaking
something.
about found footage,
Like,
let's
No,
think
it's
of
fair.
Hell House is one of the most effective, and I think Crystal agrees with me because she's smart.
yeah, I like Hell House LLC. That is also
Oh, we're
one
all
of
smart
my
then.
favorite.
We're all smart.
It's one of my favored found footage films that I do enjoy. I do enjoy some of them. All right,
I know you do.
They're just
And actually,
it's not my favorite category, and it's not my go-to.
see, and I tend to lean towards found footage because that's more effective for me personally. But Hell House also did it completely opposite of what I'm saying, because the scary entities we see pretty much the whole movie, and that was really effective for me. I'm not even scared of clowns. I'm not a clown person. Like I don't really care. But there was something about how they filmed the clowns and how they presented the clowns and how the clown just showed up and it would like turn its head just slightly and stuff. That movie got so under my skin. That's probably the movie that I can think of immediately when I think of movies that freak me out. Hell House is the like number one on my list. I still can't pinpoint exactly why.
You get comfortable with it. You get comfortable sometimes with the environment that they're in, and you don't. If on first watch, you don't know necessarily what is going to happen, what is going to be the bad thing, and so when it delivers a scare or a moment, you don't know where it's going to come from, and then you see it, and it's freaky,
like a haunted house.
Like a haunted house.
With Hell House, the part that scared me was the scare of with that clown. That was that scene that got me. Is that we know there's something wrong with that clown. It's not a normal. There's a ghost. There's something going on, but we know that our characters don't know that. Do you think that's that?
That's that build of tension again that we were talking about earlier. Because I swear you just keep building on that, and building on that, and like it just doesn't stop.
Well, Hell House definitely does effectively do it as well, you know, like, and again, I think that that's just clearly something that does freak me out. And the one that really bugged me was when the guy goes into the haunted house to do like the trial run, and he's all by himself, and he comes across the clown, and then the clown turns and like looks at him, and he catches it on camera and then shows everybody. Like, I don't know why, but that scene was really effective. And I know there's a lot of people that really get bothered by the guy that's filming in his bed, and you can see the woman come in behind him. And that part didn't really freak me out. For some reason, that part wasn't really effective, but I know so many people that are bothered by that scene.
Classic scare. So I feel like we're
Yeah.
used to types. Those like
it could
that's
be.
not new, right?
Yeah.
That one's kind of expected. It's the ones that are expected, but you're still not sure how or where
Yeah.
or when exactly. But you do expect it when someone's filming themselves that someone's going to start coming up from behind them and they don't see them, and you're like, yeah, right behind you.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
That's kind of a trope.
Exactly.
One movie that I think also effectively does that, even though I didn't have as much of a personal freak out, was I'm going to dare to say a Let Us In podcast favorite, Ty West, The Innkeepers.
Oh,
And
yeah.
is that there's a lot of moments that just almost happen. And I think that is actually my personal favorite of Ty West. And I like all his movies, even though those that saw our review, it seems like I didn't like X. It wasn't my favorite. The Innkeepers, you could really kind of take away whether it was a ghost in the ending or not. But there's a lot of that, trope where there's like a ghost that rises from the sheep. But I think that it was very effective. And I think if I was in a more isolated state, alone by myself, even in a room with all the lights on, but then I had to turn them off to go to bed, would have affected me more was The Innkeepers.
Yeah.
And that's exactly why Hill House, The Haunted of Hill House, freaked me out. And I can't watch that show very well by myself at night.
It's very emotional.
I rewatched it a few times and I still like get really scared watching it.
So good. It's so good. That is my favorite Mike Flanagan creation.
Yeah, and
it
freaks me out.
It has a hat man.
It has all of it. It has everything that could be scary about like anything when you're alone. They're all isolated. All of them are. It's so intense. They're all very personal to the things that are haunting them, and it's just freaky.
We kind of touched on this a little bit earlier, but atmosphere really plays a mood on how your freakiness comes out, I guess. So like watching him, I don't think that's the right way I want to describe it.
I like freakiness. I like it.
Yeah, that's not quite how I wanted to word that. Like the atmosphere. So like if you're watching alone in the dark by yourself, I think what mood you're in plays a really big part as to like how you get affected. Because like I was saying with Sinister, I think maybe I was just in a bad mood when I watched it. So I think that if I was in a different state of mind, or maybe I watched it the wrong time of the day, I don't know. I think that all plays a part in whether or not these movies freak you out as well. Something that I really need to work on, like the timing of when I watch certain things as well. Because I watched The Innkeepers during the day one day at like 2 p.m, and that movie didn't really freak me out at all. I really liked it, but it didn't do anything for me like scary wise. And now I kind of want to rewatch it at night and see what happens.
I'm gonna help you with this, Crystal. So we're gonna turn out all the lights, and I'm just gonna
okay,
and we'll see if that works.
That might work.
I find that now it's harder sometimes for me to be as immersed in movies because I get distracted a lot easier, especially when I'm on social media. It's gotten worse now that I'm doing it for content, because now I'm trying to squeeze in films whenever I can to like make sure that I'm caught up and to like for content. And on top of that, I'm also just in social media for a purpose now too. So I feel like I need to be like sure to give myself a break and make sure that I'm immersing myself fully in a film, because I love to be freaked out. I love it. That's why I love horror. Let us know in the comments what y'all think are some of the freakiest films. Make sure you join our Discord community so you'll not be alone next time. Click all the links, join all the thingies. And until next time, bye.